What's up?
We're not on our computers because we're here at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County.
We are here doing a very, very special episode with our friends at the Performing Arts Department. We're going to talk all about how they bring their dinosaur puppets to life. So let's head upstairs and meet the team. Are you Britt?
Yep.
All right, I gotta go to the other shop too.
Okay. We forgot to introduce ourselves.
They know who we are.
I know. Hi everyone, and now I would like to introduce you to the team that brings Dakota to life on a regular basis. If you guys would tell me your name and give us a little more information about yourselves.
I'm John. I work on the sound in Dakota, so I get to make dinosaur noises for a living.
I'm Emily, and I help repair Dakota. I designed the restoration process and collaborated with Earth, who originally built the puppets. Help Dakota stay in shape, basically.
My name is Betsy. I'm a puppeteer and a technician of puppets. I also fix the animatronic puppets at another creature puppet of ours, and I've worked in shops for many years and as a performing artist, and delighted to be here.
I'm Chris. I'm primarily a puppeteer on the team, but I also assist Emily with fabrication needs.
All right, well thank you guys. And also, would you tell me a little bit more about the puppetry program here at NHMLA? We'd love to hear more about it.
Sure. The puppetry program began about 15 years ago. Imagine a situation where somebody attends the Natural History Museum and there's no dinosaur bones on the floor. We were facing that situation when the exhibits were undergoing a renovation. We had to move much of the collection off the floor. So the idea was to build these creature puppets to fill in that gap and excite people and have a dinosaur experience. Well, it was so popular that a program that they thought might last just during the renovation has now, 15 years later, grown into an entire performing arts department with lots of puppets.
That's amazing. So, why a Triceratops? Dakota's a Triceratops. Is there any particular reason why that's the dinosaur that you've chosen to make a puppet of, or is there any other sort of reason for that?
Well, if you look outside the museum, we have dueling dino statues, a Triceratops and a T-Rex, so it was the most natural choice to then enter the museum and see these living creatures, right?
Yeah, you see the fossils at the front entrance, and if you get deeper, oh my goodness, they've come to life.
Yeah, and she's named Dakota because there are Triceratops specimens from Dakota. I can't say that she's based on any of those particular specimens, but there are lots of Triceratops specimens in our hall downstairs, all throughout the museum, and so you see a lot of Triceratops walking around the Natural History Museum, and it's cool when one of them happens to be walking towards you.
We should say also that Dakota is a juvenile Triceratops, as well as our T-Rex puppet is also represented as a juvenile dinosaur.
I guess it would be very, very difficult and time-consuming to make them as large as the adults can get. They're pretty big animals.
We need a larger puppeteer to
True. It's also pretty great to interact with kids and have them, know that Dakota's also kind of a kid.
Yeah. Hey, I'm 6 years old too.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Look at her face though. Why a Triceratops? Just as we're talking, you just look at her face. It's like, oh.
Why not a
Triceratops?
Yeah, exactly. That's a better question. Not a Triceratops. You did mention that there seems to be a lot of repair and fabrication that goes into these puppets. How do you maintain these puppets as you use them pretty much every day? That's a lot of wear and tear.
It is, and they're getting a little bit older. They're about 15 years old now, I think.
You don't look at it.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. Like I said, we just did a restoration on Dakota, so we just kind of looked at everything. We looked at the cover, that's fabric, we looked at the paint, we looked at the feet, so that was a big job, but day-to-day, maintenance, or week-to-week maintenance is more like it.
You think of it like anything, like your car, and
Yeah.
anything that requires the upkeep. Like right next to you is a marionette. How often does a string break, and we need to restring that? But we have a list that we keep track of, and we put it in order of priority and take things off the list. And it can be as simple as, oh, a spring or a screw came loose, something simple and easy to fix, to something more complicated, like several months of restoring Dakota.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit before about the refurbishment process, that you had just refurbished Dakota. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah, it had been 2 years of not using the puppet while the museum was closed during the pandemic, and many years before that of the puppet going through really, really heavy use and not having a lot of time to give it the care that it needed. So fortunately, when we were all brought back, we had several months to work on the puppet before we started doing shows. And I know on my end, there was some love that needed to be given to her voice box, if that's what we want to call it, to her roar, and also plenty of fabrication work to update as well.
So I guess one of the things that is unique about these puppets also is that the puppeteer makes the sound and goes through a voice modulation. There's a speaker inside and everything. That's kind of unique.
Yeah, it's really like, I come from a musician and a studio recording background, and you mash all of those things together and plug it into a car stereo, and that's how Dakota gets her roars. Vocal preamplifier into a guitar effects pedal into a car amplifier. But it's that lets her roar anywhere around the museum rather than coming out of, like a canned recording that's built in. So yeah, it's much more flexible, and when it was originally designed, as kind of innovative as it was, and so the technology's come a long way, and also the way that we use Dakota has come a long way. So I added some extra elements to the system so that we could tie in her sound to the speakers that are in our hall. That way, whenever she wants to roar and we want it to be a really big, loud moment, it'll feel like her roar is coming from everywhere, all around you. I also experimented with adding a guitar effects pedal that has a wider octave range, because from the research that I've seen on what noises dinosaurs might have made, it's all conjectural, but much of it seems closer to what alligators or cooing birds like doves might have made. The sort of vocal mechanisms that songbirds have didn't seem to exist, at least at the time of Triceratops, and so having that sort of really low guttural, less of a whistle and more of like a sound, or a growl like an alligator, can be expressed better through that sort of really low frequency effect.
That's fascinating. I had no idea.
It's really cool stuff.
So even when you look at like her beak and the horns, Emily is a wonderful fabricator, painter, and artist, and there's so many little details and layers of painting that had to be redone in order to make her look brand new again.
Yeah, so we took a look at almost every part of this puppet when we started the restoration process. Our focus was mainly the arm stilts, because the puppeteer has Betsy has them here, short arm stilts that they're pretty much exactly like this, except they've got some bicycle brake handles also that control the mouth and the eyes. So I think it's the other way around actually. So yeah, the puppeteer's actually in like a plank position with, the arms out in front.
Oh my goodness.
So that was the main kind of instigation for the restoration, was to replace those and also make it easier to remove them from the feet. They kind of bolted in and stuff before, like John was saying, like there's upgrades as time goes on and things start to wear, but also we come up with new ideas for how to do these things. So So yeah, so we contacted the people at Earth, and they rebuilt some of the arm crutches for us and sent those over from Australia. And then I figured out how to install them in the puppet, which is a whole nother deal. I won't go into too many details. Yeah, super simple. Yeah, and we actually redid the foot soles completely. They were just like a flat rubber that had been worn over time and became really slippery. So we tore apart the entire foot sole. Yeah, you want to grab one of her feet?
Yeah, get a leg up here, Dakota. So you can see the grip.
Yeah, so all of this is new. And also there's some rubber, it's actually orthopedic foam rubber that you would use in making shoes. So that's sandwiched inside as well. And then we cut out and shaped and built up these foot pads. So now Dakota has a cute little footprint as well.
And toenails.
And toenails. So yeah, we re-sculpted the toenails. These were a softer foam before that were kind of wearing away. And so a lot of sculpting and painting happened on those, as well as the horns, like Betsy was saying, and the beak. Let's see, what was I going to mention about these feet? This is where we had a conversation with Dr. Andrew Farkey, because when Chris was helping out with the restoration, and Betsy as well with the fabrication end of things. So when Chris and I were walking around our museum here, we noticed on one of our Triceratops skeletons downstairs, there's actually 5 toes on the front foot. So our puppet only had 4 at the time. So we actually added a 5th toe and consulted with Dr. Farkey about, what that would have looked like, how high up on the leg would it have been. We got some really interesting information about kind of the development of how we understand Triceratops to have stood. And I think at first it was kind of like this, and then it went out like that, like an alligator, and then now it's a little bit more in the middle as far as my understanding goes. So, obviously there's limitations with the puppet as far as like movement and stance, like it still has to be comfortable and safe for the puppeteer to be inside, but we did our best to kind of update with the current paleontological.
That's a great example of the collaboration that happens between art and science, and showing up in this puppet.
So many of the puppets do involve collaboration with the scientists right next to you. The sauropodamorph, Dr. Nate Smith here at the museum was instrumental in showing us the science behind this creature and bringing it to life.
Yeah, he was on the crew that went and excavated the 2 sauropodamorphs that were found, and it's actually a new enough discovery that they have yet to name the species. So that's why we're calling it a sauropodomorph, which is just, they found 2 of them, sauropodomorph A and sauropodomorph B. And so when we do shows with this puppet, actually, we tell the kids, we haven't named this puppet yet, we haven't named this species yet, so maybe you could help us give it a name. And it's had
several names. Banana was in it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
It looks like a banana.
So Gabe, from behind the camera, there's like a cool childlike fascination with dinosaurs, and I'm sure the kids absolutely love seeing, a Triceratops walking up to them. But for you, did you have like that love of dinosaurs? Is that what inspired you to come work here and be able to like bring a dinosaur to life? And do you get like that giddy feeling seeing Dakota moving sometimes?
Yes, it is. There's nothing like it. I mean, look, as a movement artist, to be able to have a job where you not only bring a creature to life, but you bring a whole different time period to life. It's incredible, and it's also very moving, and it's fun.
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of dinosaurs. More so Godzilla now. Like, that's what really got me into all the suit performance and things like that. But like as a kid, I grew up watching Jim Henson's Dinosaurs, the sitcom show, and so just that really began my love. And then, when I discovered that this was a thing here at the museum, it's like, oh, I need to do this too, because that's the whole reason I moved out here to California, was to get into creature performance, and this is it.
I think that touches on a really unique part of why we have a performing arts department at the Natural History Museum. We're the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles, and you think Los Angeles, you think, performing arts, you think Hollywood, you think, acting, and, it just makes sense that we have people in the museum who are talented, and lots of people who are puppeteers and creature puppeteers who can bring these suits to life. And I have a hard time thinking of anywhere else in the world where you'd be able to find talented performers like that right next to talented paleontologists who can collaborate and bring a creature like this to life. Not to mention talented fabricators and engineers who can make all of the insides work too.
Absolutely, because she can't come to life if she's broken.
Yeah, very true.
I've seen these dinos, come to life and perform many, many, many times, and every single time I can't even describe the feeling. I'm a little overwhelmed.
It does inspire awe, and it puts chills up your spine, and sometimes screams in little kids' throats.
Right. Yes, the reactions.
The good kind of screaming.
Yeah, the reactions are really amazing.
It's like during one of our most recent shows. In our recent show, Dakota starts out asleep, and the audience participates in waking her up. And during one of these shows, as the audience was waking her up and Dakota begins to stir, one kid turns to his parent with him and goes, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble now!"
It's so real to believe.
Like, there's really going to be a dinosaur walking down this hall.
Well, and that's the beauty of live theater.
Yeah.
Everybody's involved in we're involved in the experience, the audiences. It's a collective bringing it to life. It's not just us.
Yeah.
It's everybody in the room.
And speaking from the other side as a scientist, I remember the first time I ever saw anything I'd studied, like rendered in art. It was done for an exhibit, and I was just like, wow. It was a very special moment to think, oh, I've spent all of my time, I've spent years studying these animals, and suddenly, it's conjecture, but I'm getting an idea of what they might have actually looked like. And it's a very humbling and very honoring experience. And so I can only imagine for the scientists who collaborate with you guys in making Dakota come to life, it's also amazing to just see, like, oh, my research, the things that I've spent my whole life studying are helping breathe life into this puppet.
Yeah, that collaboration of artists and scientists is so special. It's one of my favorite things about my job here, that I can put my skills that I've spent years and years and years building together with scientists' skills that they've spent years and years and years building, and somehow make a creature like this. It's really, really special.
Yeah, it's almost like documentary, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's truth. It's factual. It's based on evidence.
And I like to hope that it goes full circle. Like we as artists working here at the museum let the science inspire us, and that influences how we bring these creatures to life. But then once you see Dakota, walking down a dinosaur hall, and you hope that some of the kids out there see that and they let the art inspire them to connect with the science again, to go downstairs and explore the dino hall and see the Sauropodsian display that we have, or see the T-Rex growth series. And then they can make the connection of, oh, that T-Rex that's in the middle, that one's the same size as the puppet I saw, but it got that big. When they see the adult, the imagination goes so far as to hopefully carry them into discoveries that we haven't even made yet.
This is what we call the fishbowl. So obviously we have the creature puppets.
This one's Dakota, our Triceratops. We also have a sauropodomorph marionette, and this over here is one of our set pieces for our dino shows. It's a cycad. There's a palm tree behind Dakota, as well as some squirrel marionettes. And then if you move this way, there's shadow puppets.
That's right, this is the shadow puppetry screen. You can see the colorful ones. There's a dragonfly that matches the Rod dragonfly puppet by the palm tree. And we set the scene where little Dakota is out in the world, and her mama behind me, she gets lost in a rainstorm. And that's what this shadow puppetry show begins, our brand new show, which is an immersive show with the goal of being as accessible as possible. So we decided to use no spoken language in the show. It's a beautiful atmosphere. And once the shadow screen goes away, the creature puppet gets revealed, as well as this one.
Here's Hunter, our juvenile T-Rex, who may or may not have a cameo in our new show that we just premiered a couple weeks ago.
And then we have a whole other host of fun toys back here. We have masks and jumping flea costumes and these cute little Edmontosaurus guys who were originally made to be eaten by Hunter the T-Rex, but fortunately we stopped doing that show. Fortunately for them, they don't have to go through that trauma anymore. They just get to hang out and look cute for all the guests.
So Chris is getting inside of Dakota. And inside of Dakota, you can see there are about 6 different straps. So he's got a battery he's put in, so you'll hear a little bit of sound. He has a waist strap. There's straps that go up in between the legs, and there's also like a backpack strap with the strap that goes along the chest. He'll be slipping his feet into the back feet. Our feet are actually on the floor with these beautiful feet. And then we slip our hands through so that we have the stilts in front. And eventually the position is like this. And the schematics show how the head, now this was the original design, so it's a little bit different, but if you see a close-up, you know, our head is basically resting in this part of Dakota. There's armature here where our head just gently fits there. It's not strapped in, it's free, and that helps us make movement of the head.
Right, the design has changed a little bit from the original here. So it's actually kind of like longer neck bars, and the puppeteer's head is underneath those. But it's still cool to look at this and see, you know, all of the workings that go on inside there.
Yeah. And one part of Emily's redesign also is there's no longer a metal bar from the shoulder to what I call the elbow. Yeah. I don't know what you call it, Emily.
Elbow, yeah.
And how did you discover that?
Well, when we started looking at Dakota for a restoration, we noticed that there was like a metal aluminum bar from the shoulder to the elbow that the connection point was clanking around and kind of wearing away. And because it's not weight bearing, it doesn't actually have to be strong and sturdy like metal. It can be more like a rubber hose or something more flexible, so that the puppeteer has more movement and there's no nasty metal clanking around. Yeah. There we go.
There we go. We're gonna unclip her. You ready? Okay, I'm getting the back.
All right, you're out.
And wait. Oh. She's off. Chris does a little more with Dakota as Dakota goes back to rest. Let's see what Chris is doing. And get the camera on. And then we go up. Take it hooked in. And then we rest.
That was amazing.
High five. High five.
Okay, so Chris, when you're inside of there, how are you able to see, first of all?
Okay, that's always the great question. So you can see out of the neck, there's mesh lining, like strips of mesh that are throughout the neck that I can see kind of like down below me. And then I can also see out in front of me through the mouth. So every time Dakota's mouth opens, I can see a little bit in front of me. We also use tricks where we're like rearing a little bit to kind of get a pan of the whole space in front of us during shows. So that's as far as visibility goes.
And then, like, you know, when you're performing out there and there's like kids who want to probably run up there and all that, like, how do you deal with that, making sure that your safety and the kids' safety is taken care of? Because I mean, if I were like a second grader and I saw that, I would definitely be running up to try to hug that dinosaur.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of experience outside of here even. I used to work at Disneyland, and so there was a lot of moments where kids would bombard the characters. So there's I can kind of tell when I'm being bombarded, and we also have, awesome handlers that are kind of around that, keep kids at bay. But it's just about being gentle and kind of like emoting that feeling of, hey, be careful with me. I'm skittish, I'm nervous. There's a lot of people around. So body language, good handlers, and just, an overall sense of gentleness with everything that kind of combines to like have a safe interaction with our characters.
And then obviously you're a little sweaty. That's got to be a workout, right? Like,
yes.
How do you have to train for that? And like, how do you get ready to start bringing Dakota to life?
So yes, there is a huge physicality element to performing in these puppets, and outside of work, I try to maintain a certain level of fitness. Cardio, like that's the most important thing. It's not so much that you have to be strong, but it's that endurance factor with the cardio that like really sets you up for success here. But yes, I sweat easily. I rain when I sweat. So that's another element with like upkeep. Is like we sweat, it drips into the fabric. So what trick we use is we use isopropyl alcohol to kind of like make sure it's all clean in there.
Okay, so you saw Dakota moving around thanks to the work of Chris. That was super cool. So how did you plan, or like how did you come up with the movements to bring Dakota to life? Was it like a choreographed dance? Did you look at living animals for that?
We did. We visited zoos. There's a lot of videos online, so any creature that is about this shape and what is what we would look at their movement and try to mirror that. And then once you're in the puppet, you just test it. It's a lot of eliminating what doesn't work, as much as it is finding what does. Yeah, and I think it's important when performing to like really get a sense of weight, because they are heavy, but they're not a 65 pounds. Yeah, they're about 65 pounds, but it's still lighter than what an adolescent Triceratops might have been. So we really, as light as we are when we're in there, we really try to make sure there's a lot of weight to our movements.
And there's still, we're still discovering all the time things that work. We'll hire a new puppeteer and they'll get in a suit and maybe do something that all of us will look at each other and go, oh, Dakota can do that, that's a new move. It's, this whole language vocabulary that's being added to and explored, because they're just, these creatures that might have moved like that in real life, and we're still trying to figure out what those moves might have been.
Yeah. Like, Gabe, what sound would you make if you didn't have language and you were really, really hungry? What sound would you make?
Oh, I already know what sound.
Exactly. That's pretty much what we do in her. But with the microphone.
Yeah.
And John's
John's
guitar pedals. So she's like a heavy metal gal.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing how you've brought together performance, puppeteering, the artistry for, science education, science storytelling. Like, for all of you as both performers, artists, but also within a museum, which is a science setting, what is it like getting to combine those two worlds for you?
It's a dream come true. I at least, I come from a background of loving science and, also loving music and art and theater. And so getting to engage both of those parts of my brain is like I said, a dream come true.
Right. I've always loved nature and science, and my background was fine arts and then working in the film industry, and then to come here and get to combine art, science, and education all wrapped up into one is so fulfilling to me.
Yeah, and my background is in broadcast news as well as performing arts, so I've never loved anything more than a true story, and the story of these creatures and what was happening and how it's relevant today. We can, for example, consider the climate today. And when we're immersing ourselves in the stories of something that lived in a climate, hundreds of millions of years ago, there's a through line to our current lives.
Mm-hmm. It's a joy. It's an absolute joy. And seeing the art and the science combined to inspire, just seeing how much it inspires little ones to get interested in the science, get interested in the art, and perpetuate the love for it, that hits my heart.
You're all speaking my language. Science, storytelling is so important, right? And for a lot of folks, we see science and then we see art. A lot of times they're kept separate.
Yeah.
But for all of you, you've combined them all, and you're taking these complex science concepts that, the scientists, they write these really complex paper, there's jargon, there's all these things that may not otherwise be passed down to the audience, but you're taking that and distilling it and turning it into this beautiful art storytelling piece. For all of you, how important is storytelling and art performance for education?
It's one of the oldest forms of learning is telling a story, and also puppetry. There's, as far as pedagogy goes, there's so many different ways of learning, but I think storytelling was kind of the basis of where human beings started to learn from one another. So it only fits that, as we progress, you can't just study a fossil. You need somebody to draw it. You need it to, the imagination to know what it was like, how it looks, and that's where artistry comes in.
What the environment was like around it,
Mm-hmm.
how it moved through that environment, what it interacted with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's what's so special about these puppets is that you come into the museum, you see the bones of extinct dinosaurs, and you can imagine what they were like. It's awe-inspiring to see those skeletons of those creatures, but when you see one of them moving, as they might have actually moved, colored like they might have actually been colored, it reminds you that these were real creatures that lived and died in their times and were surrounded by other aspects of their environment. And it ties all of the knowledge that is in the museum to the inspiration and what it is supposed to have us kind of looking for, having those fossils bringing to life a time that was before our time.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like, being able to inspire the question of why through performance is, so powerful. And I really love, I'm a big fan. I've told you all my cousins love this, so hey guys, look at it, right? I think it's so awesome how all of you work so hard to inspire all your audience here at the Alf Museum. How you inspire your audience here at the Natural History Museum of LA County, and really bring these beautiful stories to life. So again, thank you all so much for letting us meet Dakota and learn about this really cool experience. For folks watching at home who might have been inspired that like, I want to do something like that in paleontology, what's like a piece of advice that you give somebody who's interested in combining performance storytelling for science?
Well, I think shadow puppets are actually a really, really great way to start. And they're easy to make. You can make them with paper and brads and, little sticks, little dowels and stuff. So I think that's a really great way. You can set up your own setup at home with either a piece of paper and a light behind it or a sheet, and start telling those stories with silhouettes. It's pretty simple to do and really rewarding. So that's one way.
We just did that here at the museum. There's a community outreach program called Expand LA that we got a grant to basically take a mobile museum and go out to like little summer schools and little orphanages, I believe, and some community centers where the kids are. And one of the things that we would do is we would give them kits to make their own shadow puppet dinosaurs. So we're already on that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So for folks who are watching at home who've never been to the museum, how can they come and get a chance to meet Dakota and all your other cool puppets here?
Well, we have performances, two performances Thursday through Sunday, both at this museum and at the La Brea Tar Pits. So if this show is sold out, you have to go online and get your ticket, and if it's sold out, you can try the La Brea Tar Pits Museum for a creature show there.
And even if you come on a day when we're not doing dinosaur encounters, you can always come and meet Dakota here in the fishbowl, because she will be here and Hunter will be here, and you can see these puppets even if it's behind glass.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all so much. This has been fantastic. I love it. I'm going to take selfies in a little bit, so we'll end here. Sound good? All right, well, thank you so much to everybody for joining us on this special episode of Fossil Friday Chats. You can find links about the NHMLA and all the programs in the description below. And as always, if you like Fossil Friday Chats and want to support programs like it at the Alf Museum and the Western Science Center, you can find links on how to do that in the description below. Make sure you like and subscribe for more stories from the world of paleontology. Bye, everybody.